Alright, you guys, well, we are going to do a review video for Unit 9 factoring test. And the first thing I want to talk about before we get started is just a little bit more about factoring. Remember, when you're factoring, your final answer is in two sets of parentheses. If A is 1, like in our first four problems here, then you know that the first term is just x and x. Then don't forget that the signs tell a story. So let's say you have this first problem here. You want to get this sign first, and that sign tells me that the two signs in my answers are going to be different. Then you look back at this sign and it tells me the larger number is positive. So when you're thinking about your answer here, it's going to be in two sets of parentheses. Your first term is x and x, because x times x is x squared. And my signs are going to be different with the larger number positive. So positive goes in one and negative goes in the other. In order to find out what two numbers go in these last two spots, you have to think what multiplies to give you A times C, what adds to give you B. We know that this is the A term, this is the B term, and this is the C term. So we're thinking what multiplies to give us a negative 24, what adds to give us 2. So I would put negative 24 over here in a table, and I would list all the factors of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Then I need to think about my signs, because I know my signs are going to be different, and the larger number is positive. So I keep all my large numbers positive and all my small numbers negative. And I'm looking for the combo of numbers that multiply to give me negative 24 and add to give me 2. I see that negative 4 and 6 are going to be that combo. Negative 4 times 6 is a negative 24, and when you add them together, you get 2. Always check when you're at this spot. Do they multiply to the top and add to get the bottom? Yes. So my 6 is the positive one, so it would go here, and that 4 is the negative one. That's your final answer for this this question. If you wanted to check, you could FOIL it back out. X times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is a negative x. 6 times x is negative 6x, and 6 times a negative 4 is a negative 24. These two combine your like terms, and it gets x squared plus 2x minus 24. And that's just a good way to check where you're right. In this case, when you get your answer matching what you started with, then you know you've done something right. The parentheses are your actual answers. So you want to come up to the answer blank and put your parentheses up there. Same thing for number 2. My signs are, the second one is positive, so that tells me my signs are going to be the same. Negative sign right there tells me my signs are opposite or different. Positive sign right here tells me my signs are the same. And you look to the second sign and it tells you they're both negative. So when you're coming down here to write your answer, you know you're going to have a y times a y. Then my signs are the same. They're both negative. So you go and write negative signs there. So now you have to factor in order to find out what your numbers are. Y give you 8 and add to give you a negative 6. So I want to come over here and make a table. 1 times 8, 2 times 4. I know my signs are going to be the same, and it's going to be negative, so I make all those numbers negative. I look to see which ones would add to give me a negative 6, See this pair right here, negative 2 and a negative 4. I double check. Does negative 2 multiply times negative 4 to get 8? Yes. Does negative 2 plus negative 4 equal a negative 6? Yes. So those are my answers. And you can always FOIL to check. Same thing for number 3. Check out this sign first. It's a plus sign. So that tells me my signs are going to be the same. Then you look over to that first sign right there, and it tells me they're both negative. So come down to your parentheses, and I would say x minus and x minus. Then I need to think what multiplies to give me 9, what adds to give me a negative 10. Multiplies to give me 9. Well, there's two options. There's 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. I know my signs are the same and they're both negative. I'm looking for which combo adds to give me a negative 10. It'll be this one right here. Negative 1 and a negative 9. Double check. Negative 1 times negative 9 multiplies to give me 9. Good. Negative 1 times negative 9 adds to get a negative 10. Yes, they add to get this and they multiply to get that. So you put 1 there and 9 there. Last factoring problem here. The first thing you want to do is check out that sign right there. It's a negative, so that tells me that my signs are going to be different. And then this sign tells me the larger number is. In this case, it's positive, but if there was a negative sign there, the larger number would be negative. So I come down to my parentheses, and I say y and y. They're going to be different. One's positive and one's negative. And all of those larger numbers are going to be positive. So you're thinking what multiplies to give you a negative 54, what adds to give you 3. Let's see. What multiplies to give us a negative 54? Well, 1 and 54, 2 and 27. Let's see. It divides by 3, 3 and 18. 54 also divides by 6, or 6 and 9. It doesn't divide by 7, doesn't divide by 8, so we are finished with our factors. We know the larger number is going to be positive, so I keep all of those large numbers positive and make all the small ones negative. I'm looking for the combo that adds to give me 3. That would be these guys. So negative 6 and 9. Check. Does negative 6 times 9 equal negative 54? Yes. Does negative 6 plus 9 equal 3? Yes. So you've done that right. So 6 goes here, 9 goes here. And it doesn't matter if you write the parentheses as y plus 9 and y minus 6, or if you write it as y minus 6 and y plus 9. Those are the same things. Okay? The next section is talking about solving the equation. I know that when we're solving the equation, it has an equal to 0 sign, so when I'm finished, I need to set everything equal to 0. It also tells me to solve. The first section just asked me to factor, so that's all I did. The next section is asking me to solve, so there's one more step. Here, number 5, we already have everything factored because I've got some parentheses and I've got the greatest common factor outside of it. So all I need to do here is set each piece equal to 0. So I'm going to set j equal to 0 and j minus 7 equal to 0. This is already solved because I can't divide by anything. There's no other numbers over here. I got j by itself, so I'm done. J equals 0 as one of my options. Then I just want to add 7 to both sides here so that I can get j by itself. 0 plus 7 is 7. So these are two answers for j. In order for j times j minus 7 to equal 0, I could make j equal 0, or I could make j equal 7. Number 6 is not factored yet, but we can factor it. This is something we did this week. We look to see that these are perfect pairs, and they are, with a minus sign in between. So I can factor that special product just by saying what times what is y squared? Well, y times y. Then times itself, 81, 9. So 9 times 9 is 81. Because there's a negative sign in front of my c, I know that my signs are going to be different. One's positive and one's negative. Once you have that piece factored in your two sets of parentheses, now set each parenthesis equal to 0. So y plus 9 equals 0 and y minus 9 equals 0. And then solve for y. In this case, I'll subtract 9 on both sides, so y equals a negative 9. In the second one, I'll add 9 to both sides, and y will equal 9. So those are my two answers, negative 9 and positive 9. Same thing for number 7 and 8. We just need to factor first, then solve. So I'm thinking, just like we did at the beginning of the video, what multiplies to give me 50 adds to give me that negative 15. I know because there is a plus sign right here, my signs are going to be the same. And then I look back at this sign and it tells me they're both negative. So I can come down here and say x and x equals 0. And I know they're both going to have a minus sign in there. So what multiplies to give me 50 and adds to give me a negative 15? Well, you've got 1 times 50, 2 times 25, and 5 times 10. And all those numbers are going to be the same sign, that negative sign. Which combo adds to give me 15? These guys right here, negative 5 and a negative 10. They make it into the parentheses. And then because it says solve, I have to take one extra step and set each parenthesis equal to 0. X minus 5 equals 0 and x minus 10 equals 0. And then solve for x. So x is going to equal a positive 5 and add 10 here. Excuse me. Add 10 on this side. Excuse me. And then you get x equals a positive 10. Two answers, x equals 5 and x equals 10. Problem number 8, same thing. Got to factor and then solve. So you're thinking, that sign tells me my signs are going to be different. Look back here and it tells you the larger number is negative this time. So you've got your parentheses equal to 0. Excuse me, that's an inconvenient time to have the sneezes. Y times y is y squared. They're going to be opposite signs, and I'm going to keep my large numbers negative. I'm thinking what multiplies to give me a negative 2 and adds to give me a negative 1 because there's a 1 right there. My larger number is negative. There's only one combination for what multiplies to give you a negative 2. That would be 1 times 2, and that larger number is negative. So negative 2 and a positive 1. Set each parenthesis equal to 0, y minus 2 equals 0, and add 2 to both sides. So you get y equals 2, and then y plus 1 equals 0, so you subtract 1 from both sides, and you get y equals a negative 1. That's going to be all for this video. I'm going to pause it and then start a new video for the next page. So you guys are more than welcome to look at that video if you need the second page.